Такие гаража, конечно, ебало нахуй, гаражей нет.
Commander-in-Chief Syrski says Ukraine has multiple plans around Pokrovsk, including contingencies for different scenarios. Russia has massed 50,000 troops in the area, but attack intensity has slightly dropped, and the situation remains under control. Fighting in Pokrovsk, Ukraine, has decreased, but Russian forces have not abandoned plans to occupy the city. The command has contingency plans for various scenarios, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrski, said. He said Pokrovsk is now a fully fortified area. There are a few spots where Russian forces managed to breach engineering barriers, but the armed forces know exactly where these points are, so the situation is generally under control. Of course, there is also a Plan B and a Plan C for all possible developments, he said. Syrski confirmed that Russian forces have reduced the intensity of attacks in Pokrovsk. However, this does not mean they have stopped targeting the city for occupation. The enemy has concentrated 50,000 troops in the area, after sending 30,000 personnel there since October. The commander-in-chief added that he is currently spending almost all his time in Pokrovsk. The 425th Assault Regiment has been deployed to the city and is operating very effectively. Logistics routes to the city have been restored and redirected, and the combat zone is assessed 3 times a day. He said there is no reason for panic. The pace of the Russian advance in the Pokrovsk direction has indeed slowed. However, analysts suggest it could pick up again in the coming days. The Russian army may target Mirnorod, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Defense forces continue to hold positions within the Pokrovsk-Mirnohrad agglomeration, but the situation remains tense. Russian units have entered the city, but Ukrainian forces are actively engaging them and pushing the enemy back. Coordination between different units remains a key task. A new strike on the Luch thermal power plant has caused another blackout in Belgorod. On the night of November 10th, a new attack on the Luch thermal power plant in Belgorod, Russia, which had already been damaged earlier, was recorded. This was reported by local telegram channels and Russian media. Residents are posting footage of bright flashes and fires in the area of the energy facility. As a result of the attack, part of the city was again left without electricity, with tram lines shut down, lighting, and some utilities out of service. According to preliminary information, the attack hit the restored gas turbine units damaged during the previous attack on November 8th. Local sources claim that the explosions were so powerful that they could be heard in several districts of the Belgorod region. Governor Vyacheslav Gladkov acknowledged the damage to the facility, but traditionally claimed air defense and falling debris. Published footage shows a large-scale fire and power outage in a large part of the city. Power engineers confirmed that the Luch was out of commission again, and the time frame for restoring power is currently unknown. After 2 attacks in a row, Belgorod is experiencing the largest blackout in the war, leaving thousands of Russians without power. The Russian authorities are restricting comments, but local public reports indicate that some of the cooling systems of the thermal power plant have been completely destroyed. It has been recently stated about the attack on the Belgorod Dam and how it will affect the southern Slobozhansky sector. Reuters exclusive. Lukoil declares force majeure in Iraq over U.S. sanctions, sources say. Lukoil opens new tab declared force majeure at its Iraqi oil field, sources told Reuters on Monday, and Bulgaria was poised to seize its Burgas refinery as the Russian company's international operations buckled under the strain of U.S. sanctions. The force majeure at the West Kurna 2 field in Iraq marks the biggest fallout yet from the sanctions imposed on Russian oil majors Lukoil and Rosneft, opens new tab last month as part of U.S. President Donald Trump's push to end the war in Ukraine. 4 sources with knowledge of the matter told Reuters that Lukoil sent a letter to Iraq's oil ministry last Tuesday saying force majeure conditions prevented it from continuing normal operations at West Kurna 2. Lukoil did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment on Monday. Lukoil is the Russian company with the most exposure to international markets. Its attempt to sell its foreign assets to Swiss commodity trader Gunvor failed last week after the U.S. Treasury signaled Washington opposed the deal. Located 65 kilometers, 40 miles, northwest of the port of Basra, West Kurna 2, is one of the world's largest oil fields and Lukoil's most prized foreign asset. It accounts for around 9% of Iraq's total oil output and is currently producing around 480,000 barrels per day, two oil field officials said. If the reasons behind the force majeure are not resolved within 6 months, Lukoil will shut production and exit the project entirely, a senior Iraqi oil industry official said. Reuters had reported last week that Iraq's state oil firm SOMO canceled loadings of 3 crude oil cargoes from Lukoil's equity production at the oil field over the sanctions. And 3 of the sources on Monday said Iraq had halted all cash and crude payments to the company due to the sanctions. Payments to Lukoil will remain frozen until there is a contractual adjustment securing a mechanism for developing the oil field and a way of making payments to non-sanctioned entities, said one of the sources, an oil ministry official. About 4 million barrels of crude oil allocated for in-kind payments to Lukoil for November have, meanwhile, been cancelled, the official said. SOMO will not be able to continue its crude oil supply contract with Lukoil until the issues behind these sanctions are resolved, the source added. By declaring force majeure as permitted under its contract, Lukoil is seeking legal protection against penalties for failing to meet contractual obligations with the oil ministry, another Iraqi official said. Lukoil, in an email sent on Friday, terminated the services of all non-Russian foreign staff, a manager at West Kurna 2 said, meaning only Russian and Iraqi Lukoil staff remain. Separately on Monday, Bulgaria's Prime Minister Rosen Zhelyazkov said authorities were conducting inspections and implementing security measures at Lukoil's Burgas oil refinery. The government is looking to sustain its operation while preparing to seize control of the site. Last week, Bulgaria adopted legal changes allowing it to take over the refinery and sell it to a new owner. A ceremony of acceptance of 3 Russian Mi-38 helicopters was held in the Myanmar capital Nay Pyi Taw with the participation of the head of the military regime. The junta received 2 transport Mi-38Ts and 1 in a VIP version for the transportation of high-ranking officials, as shown by Miyawadi. Myanmar has become the first actual foreign recipient of the new Mi-38 helicopters manufactured by Kazan Helicopters Company. The contract for the supply of these 3 Mi-38s to Myanmar was probably signed in January 2020, when Rosoboron Export announced that it had signed the first contract with a foreign customer for the supply of the latest Mi-38T airborne transport helicopters. In September 2020, the then CEO of Russian Helicopters, Andrei Boginsky, stated regarding the Mi-38 that, "We have a signed contract and received an advance payment from a foreign customer for 3 helicopters." Later, in 2021 to 2022, it was reported that the first foreign customer was a Southeast Asian country. The implementation of the contract was apparently delayed due to the lengthy refinement of the Mi-38 helicopter and its TV-7-117V engines, as well as military and political events in Myanmar, including the military coup of February 1, 2021, and the subsequent civil war. In March 2022, Myanmar opposition resources disseminated leaked documents from Rosoboron Export and Russian helicopters on Russia's military technical cooperation with Myanmar in the field of military helicopters. Among this documentation was Rosoboron Export's commercial offer to Myanmar dated November 22, 2019, for a contract for 2 transport Mi-38Ts and 1 Salon Mi-38T, which is likely to be signed in January 2020. According to this proposal, Rosoboron Export requested €18.89 million for each Mi-38T transport and €21.9 million for the Salon version of the Mi-38T helicopter. In addition, it cost €1.48 million for optional equipment for 2 Mi-38T transports, €2.17 million for flight and ground crew training, and group sets of equipment for helicopter maintenance could have amounted to up to 30% of the cost of the helicopters themselves. Thus, the total contract value, is estimated at up to 80 million euros. Taking into account these 3 Myanmar helicopters, Russia has built 4 prototypes of the Mi-38 and, since 2019, a total of 12 flight production models. Earlier, Russia ordered ultra-expensive Mi-38 helicopters for the Ministry of Emergency Situations.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Rescues every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.